visuals.
Right. Okay. So we are on air. Good
Okay.
morning, Tim. Yes. Good
Good
morning,
morning.
Tim,
Good
and
morning.
good morning to everybody watching us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, listening to us in Clubhouse. Thanks a lot for being with us. It's a pleasure to be here on this Wednesday morning. It is November the 13th, but it's Wednesday. It's not Friday, so there shouldn't be any problems with the date of this podcast. And today, Tim and I are going to talk about island cultures, and more specifically, the cultures of Japan and Hawaii, and also how they interface each other, how they are similar to each other, and also maybe how they're different as well, because
Right.
even though the indigenous people are people who have been here for centuries and even millennia, the two cultures have been impacted by external forces and external influences,
Right.
cultural influences
Exactly.
as well. So we expect that there are some differences as well. But that's what the topic is going to be today.
Yeah. So it's just a fun topic. I mean,
Often, yeah.
nothing too serious. As you can tell, my voice sounds funny. I caught a cold. Everyone's got the sniffles and coughing on the train. So that's me. The curmudgeon has a cold. Um,
Oh,
so hopefully my voice will hold up.
I hope so too.
And
Yes.
I would be remiss not to say up front, I am not an expert on Hawaiian culture. Like I don't claim, but my only credentials is I lived there for 14 years. I was associated with the hula community in Hilo and many hula communities in Japan. And in fact, my wife, we'd bring over hula dancers or
Hmm.
hula students slash, some of them were teachers too, to study traditional, it's called kahiko hula. It's the most traditional. It's not
Okay.
the modern hula that you see in Honolulu. It's praising Pele, the goddess,
The
right? The
goddess.
volcano goddess. So it's old school, right?
Yeah.
And I started. My first observation was the local kumu, the
Hmm.
senseis, they call them kumu in Hawaii, loved their Japanese students so much because they were serious. They
Hmm.
took it all very seriously, but there was more. There was like I don't want to sound woo woo, but like a spiritual dimension to it that, nature is sacred. And if
Right.
you're going to make a lei, you go up to the mountain, you pick a flower, you thank nature for giving you that beautiful flower. You honor it, right? Like,
Yes.
and people from my culture, mainland America, I think it's hard to relate to that thinking. You could go
Hmm.
through the motions and pretend, but I don't think it's really in our culture, right? But it is in Japanese culture.
Yeah.
Everything has a spirit. The flower has a spirit. So the Japanese hula ladies, they understood it. They got it, right? And I've been watching this hula phenomenon since the early 2000s in Japan.
Hmm.
There's a huge hula community. There's so many schools. All my friends are in that world. They play hula, Hawaiian music. They always bring hula dancers to their events. I thought it was going to be a fad that was going to disappear. It's still going really strong. It's like now a subculture in Japan.
Yes.
If you go
Yeah.
to these events, the Japanese are saying, mahalo and aloha, and more than the Hawaiians say it almost.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but they genuinely love Hawaii. And so that was kind of like my initial observations.
Right.
And then I got a new point of view in 2014 when a lava flow started coming down the mountain
Mm.
directly toward my house.
Mm.
And I mean, they had it like they were predicting the path of the flow, right?
Yeah.
It's not a science. But they were projecting that it was going to basically go through my living room, but it was far away.
Right.
So the county held these, I don't remember if it was weekly or monthly, but just once in a while they'd hold these public meetings, and the geologists would come in. It was a slow moving flow. I mean, it was creeping down the mountain, right? And he'd come in and explain the geology and, everything
Hmm.
to keep everybody informed. And it was a bonding experience because everybody in the neighborhood came together and gathered there, and then you talk.
Right.
It was kind of therapeutic, cathartic in
Hmm.
some way, right? So, but they always, like, they would have question time, right?
Yeah.
And but they would say before question time, they'd say, okay, so first of all, the county will, under no circumstances, take any action to try to alter the flow. Some of it is because we don't think we could do it anyway, and also local Hawaiian cultural sensibilities.
Hmm.
And he didn't say it, but also liability. If you could change the flow and it goes to another neighborhood,
Right. Yeah.
we just so they're just saying, so we're not going to do it. So don't ask those questions. Okay.
Hmm.
Sure enough. And these were all people from the mainland, right?
Hmm.
They'd go and they go, how about we get some D9 shovels up there and we build a little embankment? And they're saying, we're not going to answer questions about it. We're not going to do that. Everybody, one guy goes up there and he goes, so what if we use the military and we bomb the you know the crater so the lava flows this way rather than toward the town?
Bomb
All right,
the
bomb the
crater.
crater. And again, they're like, we're not going to take any action to alter the lava flow, right? And
Right.
this clash of cultures,
Mm.
the Westerner who wants to control nature, right, or
Yeah.
attempt, who
We think that we can, right?
and who doesn't want to be passive. Like,
Hmm.
we have to try to protect everybody's home. And my home,
Yes.
again, my home was like right in the path, right?
Hmm.
And I was, how would I say? I was with the Hawaiians, but not for that reason. I just thought we can't do it. Just don't even bother. We can't do it. We can't
Hmm.
even set up a safe traffic, intersection. We haven't even mastered the basics yet. So there's no way we're going to be able to do it, even if we wanted to try, right? And
Right.
the Hawaiians, this is what fascinated me. The way they dealt with it psychologically, in their mind, the entire island belongs to Pele. It belongs to the goddess.
Right.
And she's been kind enough to let us live there all this time, and we should be very grateful.
Yeah.
And if she comes, literally, this is what they're talking about. And if she, meaning the lava flow, comes to my house, we're gonna mow our lawn, clean our sheets. We're welcoming the guest
Hmm.
into our home, and we'll be honored if she chooses to take our home. Right? To
Yeah.
the Western mind, that's a very difficult concept to
Hmm.
grasp. I get it because I study
Yeah.
anthropology and different cultures, so I get it. But there's a big gap in there in how
Yeah.
we look at the world.
There is. I mean, we have been conditioned since a very early age. We have been shown how we actually can change the things around us, right? And
Yeah.
we also are expected as Westerners in the Western world to be proactive, to be the doers, to be the agents of everything, and the ones who decide what happens to us. I think, but well, basically here, everybody is on the receiving side. People here, they are the receivers of outcomes. And I'm talking about
Yes.
understand because I have never been to Hawaii. I have no experience of the Hawaiian culture in Hawaii. Of course, I have seen, the hua dancers here at festivals, and I see how the Hawaiian resort, I think it is north of Tokyo, was it in Tochigi? I don't remember where exactly it was, but it's still, going very strong and full of
It's amazing.
yes, it is amazing. But the thing is that once again, as you said, Tim, that we in the Western world cannot sit calm and observe. We have to do something because we believe that we can change our own destiny, we can change our own future, we can change the environment we are in at the moment. But also, it makes me think that. Basically, we as Westerners, very early, at a very young age, lose the ability to see the nuance. And I'm not saying that people don't see nuance per se, but our ability to see nuance and to understand context is not as let's say, as good as the Japanese ability to do that. And I believe it's the same with the Hawaiian people there because when you live on an island and you live in a kind of a closed community, you do have to actually
Prone to disasters,
and prone to
tsunamis and
disaster,
hurricanes. Yeah.
hurricanes, and also earthquakes. I don't know whether there are any earthquakes in Hawaii, but
When
oh,
eruptions occur, we have a active volcano on the
right,
island. On
of,
this island, the
yeah,
island we're on, right?
yeah,
The Big Island.
yes,
So, and just to the point you made earlier, in the West, we separated man from nature. Nature is something to control and manipulate, and which we
yeah,
do with technology to a degree, but sometimes we don't want to accept that we have limits and we want to
right,
keep, right? And by the way, I'm not judging. I'm just saying, here's the different points of view. And
exactly,
there's
yeah,
no right or wrong. It just depends on your values and how you look at reality, right? But
yes,
the Hawaiians, like the Japanese, man wasn't separate from nature. In fact, somewhere I read years ago, they didn't even have a word for nature until I forget when. Like they had to invent the word because it was just part of everybody, like a fish. Water is to a fish, right? I wish I could
right,
remember the source of that. So somebody check it out. If I'm wrong, let me know. But
yeah,
um, yeah, and like just to quickly, so I started thinking about like why do Japanese and Hawaiians get along so well? And I started thinking island volcanic cultures right there, boom, right? Um, oh yeah, you got to do that, yeah. Um, you know what? Why don't we take a quick break because we didn't do the sponsor thing. So we
no,
got to do that, and
and
that's my bad. So go for it.
no, it's not your bad. It's actually, I should have done it earlier, immediately after the start of the podcast. But, well, it's time now for our big thank you to our friends. Well, the first friend, Kanachu, and James Howell. You already know.
James,
Yes, you have met James if you are on LinkedIn. He's very active there. And
yeah,
he represents Kanachu at kanachu.com. So that if you have any projects about real estate, maybe buying and renting homes in Yokohama, buying a home in Tokyo, and also if you're thinking about property management and investment property, do not hesitate and reach out to James, and you can talk with him in either language, Japanese or English. So it's not as difficult anymore to actually realize what you have in mind when it comes to real estate. So it is James at kanachu.com or James Howell on LinkedIn. That's, well, Tim, thank you very much for letting me do this. And
no,
yeah,
no, I'm glad, and apologies. So, but that was a
right.
good break, and so yeah, so I was during that I was um, thinking. So island culture, volcanic islands,
Yeah,
nature worship. You exalt nature. Nature is conscious in Hawaii.
right.
Like nature
Yes.
can hear you. There's a
Yeah.
consciousness, right?
Animism, animism as well. Like,
Animism
yeah,
and Japan's rice culture, right? Most
the
rice
rice. Yes.
collectivist,
Mm-hmm.
but they grow taro, same knee deep in mud. It's wet tidal farming, right?
Right. Yeah.
Very similar, you know.
Hmm.
And of course, there's differences, but when you start and female deities,
Yes.
Amaterasu,
Mm.
Omikami, like that.
Related to nature, yeah, to
Yeah. So
fertility.
lots of gods, you know, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just there's so many
Hmm.
similarities. No wonder, you
No
know.
wonder. Yeah.
And so what? Some of the difference things is Hawaiians are pretty laid back,
Hmm.
very affectionate, a lot of hugging, kissing. You know, when you meet people, like the Hawaiians are very warm and demonstrative,
Hmm.
right? And the Japanese are not.
Right.
In
Yeah.
general, we're only talking about patterns. There's exceptions, we all know that, right?
Hmm.
But when the Japanese get exposed to the Hawaiian warmth,
Hmm.
they literally and figuratively embrace it. They love
Yeah.
it,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
And when we used to bring our Japanese guests, we would hug them at the airport, put a layover there and hug them. And they were surprised. We were breaking the rules, but they were on our turf, Hawaii, and
Hmm.
they liked it. And all of them, after they go back to Japan, when we come and see them in Japan, they always hug us. They
Right.
like it. They've been
Well,
given permission by Hawaiian culture to do it. You
hmm,
know, and I think that's so sweet. Like I
it
see that kind
is.
of thing.
Yes. But I
So,
think it's also, yes, the permission is very important, especially in the case of, well, in the case of Japanese culture, you need permission. And when I say permission, it's not just the permission of your family or your boss, you know,
social
your peers.
permission.
You need the social permission here to do something, and once you have it, it's nice. But in the case of hugging, you know, and touching, I think that it's really when it comes to the benefits of human touch, they have been underrated. And of
Oh
course,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right, in cultures, I think that in cultures that are more open and laid back, like the Hawaiian culture, you have more, how can I put it, interaction, like physical touch between the people. And then that is something which is not seen as strange, right?
yeah.
And then, but in Japan, it is the other way around. Basically, you cannot go around, you know, and hug with your boyfriend or your partner in front of other people in public and so on, which is really interesting because when I think about Japan and how people actually behave during rush hour on the train, for example, or when you think about the Japanese izakayas, they are so tight there. I mean,
Yeah.
for a Westerner who comes here, you know, and I remember my first thoughts when I went to an izakaya, I was like, how can so many people sit here, you know, in this tiny place, have fun, drink, you know, and nobody, you know, bats an eye or
And you're
it,
shoulder to shoulder
yes,
sometimes.
your
Yeah,
shoulder to
yeah,
shoulder. So something that never happens back home, right? We have larger spaces, we have more social distance.
yeah.
But here in Japan, while you're not allowed, or you're not, how can I say, it's not about allowance, but you're not supposed to hug and touch others in public, still, you know, in certain situations,
Context is going back
yes,
to the original point. Yes,
yes,
that's true.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
it's
that's why I've said this before.
mhm,
Everything you can say about Japan, you can say the opposite because
right,
depending on the
yes,
context, it's the
mhm,
opposite. You know,
yeah.
the Japanese are indirect. Yeah, get
Mhm.
in the inner circle where they're close friends. They're brutally direct sometimes.
They are,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
So yeah, to
Yeah.
that point.
You know, it's fascinating also because one more thing, you know, connecting this point about social distance in different situations and different contexts. So both Hawaii and Japan are traditionally agricultural societies. And there is research saying that people who are members of agricultural societies tend to sit closer to
Ah,
one another.
interesting. Yeah,
Is interesting, and they actually find it very natural. Unlike hunter-gatherers, for example, like people in the
yeah.
West, because we were traditionally hunter-gatherers before we became farmers. So This is really interesting, and
Is fishing hunter gathering, or is that a separate category? Because it's
it's a
kind of
separate, yeah, it's a separate, maybe a subcategory. But when you fish, basically, and I'm not talking about, the way people fish here or on the Pacific Islands and so on, but my the image I have of fishing back home is that you can fish alone. You
that's
don't
true.
have, right? You don't need people to help you fish.
Unless you got those big ass nets.
Right. Yes, but that's then we come, to the Pacific fishing or the Mediterranean fishing, and that's probably
Yeah.
a little bit different. That's yet another subculture, I believe. So,
So just very quickly back to the
mhm,
hugging, just for one quick.
yeah.
So my wife married me. We went back to America for over 30 years, and she became a hugger.
Hmm.
Okay. She
Yes.
always hugged my kids. She saw me doing it and she adapted,
Yeah.
right? She got comfortable with it.
Hmm.
She told me once, she goes, I have no memories of ever hugging my mother growing up.
Mm.
And that just because that kind of affection,
Yeah.
it's shown a different way. It's
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I agree. It's shown in a different
it's
way.
shown a different
Yes.
way.
Yeah.
But the funny part is,
Hmm.
so her mother was against her marrying me, the foreigner, the foreign barbarian. And I
Yes.
looked like a barbarian. I had a big bushy beard and long hair. Um, so I don't blame her. I made a bad first impression. So she was totally against it, but I won
Mhm.
her over. It took about 25 years, but I won her over eventually.
What's 2.5 decades?
Hey, whenever I would come back, we'd visit. I'm the only one she'll hug. Like she'll come up to me and hug me. She won't hug
Right.
her own daughters.
Nice.
She hugs the gaijin, the barbarian, and
Right.
it's almost like, okay, I have permission to do it in this context because he's my son-in-law, or yeah,
Right.
gaijin's son-in-law, right? So even she kind of liked it.
Mm.
Hugging feels good. It feels good to hug.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is. Yes, again, I have a story too. So,
go for
because
it.
basically, yes, but it's a little bit different. And once again, what I want to say is it goes hand in hand with what you mentioned, that love here is expressed in different ways.
Yeah,
So, back home, we hug a lot, we kiss a lot, and so on and so on. So, when my daughter was born, and of course she received a lot of hugs, a lot of kisses. That continues even until today, even
yeah.
though she's culturally very Japanese. But when she was going to Hoikuen, so that is the kids
Nursery school.
nursery
I don't
school.
know what
Yeah,
you call it now. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
Preschool.
it's yeah, but she was still about 3 years old at
I
that
guess
time.
that's I think there's another name.
Nursery.
Anyway, nursery
Okay.
school, whatever.
Or daycare
Old
center.
people. That's what old people call it. Okay, go
Right.
ahead.
Okay. No, but so every time when either I or my husband, took her there in the morning, we would kiss her on the cheek, give her a hug, and then say, "Okay, see you later." And then one day, so this is a story I heard from my husband, was that he took our daughter to the Huikuen, and when they entered the room where other kids, they were still already there. So
Right.
basically, he once again, gave her a kiss on the cheek and hug her. And he immediately heard a boy from the other side of the room shouting, looking at them and shouting, "No kisses!"
Oh yeah.
So, but
Ooh,
anyway,
girls. That's what the boys thought. Oh, I'm gonna get the cooties. They give you the
maybe,
cooties. I don't know
yes,
what the cooties are, but
right.
yeah.
So,
Oh,
but of
that's
course,
funny.
that's just one incident, when that,
Yeah.
let's say, that boy felt like expressing his disgust of, you
Right,
know,
right, right, right.
kisses and so on. But it's so cute because, of course, this habit never changed, even until nowadays,
Yeah.
So she receives a lot of hugs, a lot of kisses, my daughter, and so on
Right.
at home. But the thing is that, that thing would have never happened back home, right?
Right.
So
Right.
people wouldn't have noticed. I mean, the other
Right.
kids
Right.
would
Right.
have
Right.
noticed that. So
Atarimaya. Right.
Atarima,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So it's interesting to observe how these, societal expectations and habits actually they
Yeah.
get expressed in the different countries. But it's once again, as you said, Tim, what can be said about Japan? You can say exactly the opposite
The
thing about the
opposite,
country.
depending on the
So,
situation. Yeah.
yes, and what I love about it is that everything is situational. And another thing is that I believe probably it's the same in Hawaii. So people there are much more attuned to what is happening at the moment they are in, and probably they are much more flexible and prepared to deal with what is in front of their eyes and what is just in front of them.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and
it's a respect culture. Okay.
mhm,
So there is, and it's not the rank that the Japanese, the Confucian hierarchy, it's not the same, but there still is this. If somebody becomes a kumu, they're
mhm,
like the wise person. You just show respect toward that person.
yeah,
So there's that respect aspect that it's not that they're never disrespectful. They are, like everybody is, but it's the
mm,
ideal
it's the
respect.
ideal.
And
Yeah.
that's the accepted. That's what you're
Mhm,
supposed to do, be respectful, right? Exactly the same thing in Japan.
mhm,
And also the idea of harmony, working things out, you know,
yeah.
being mature adults and trying to figure out compromises. And it
Right.
doesn't mean they always do that. There's disharmony in any culture, Japan, Hawaii, but
Mhm,
the ideal is to aspire for harmony, right?
right.
Harmony in
Yes.
situations.
Mhm,
Disasters. I went through several disasters. I went through three disasters.
mhm.
First was the slow motion disaster that was coming down toward my house. And by the way, it stopped at the end of 2014, right before Christmas, and it never restarted. So like three
Oh,
miles up the mountain from me, right? Um, so that was a good thing, but
yeah.
still the community pulled together.
Mhm,
Like they started creating, like, leaders emerged, and people, like, really, it was just amazing how quickly they built. Normally I would have never met people that I
mhm.
did. Strangers bringing me ice during a power outage, like, somebody I never met, a Hawaiian dude. Hey,
Right.
bro, man, I got some ice. You need some ice? There you are. It was
Yeah.
just very heartwarming. It makes you want to
Yeah.
pitch in too,
Well,
right?
yeah. To help, to be part of that
And then we
system.
had it.
Mm.
It wasn't a full blown hurricane, but it was a, what do you call it? It was a tropical storm, but it was right on the edge. It was almost a
Mhm.
hurricane. Wiped out all the trees, power out. You know, Eh, you would think people would be paralyzed, but chemo's construction. This is what the locals say. Chemo is a common name, right? Like
Mhm.
Don or Bob or whatever, right? Chemo's construction is everybody has a chainsaw.
Uh-huh.
And as
Okay.
soon as the storm was done, they'd go out in their trucks and they would try to go a route. And if there was something in front of them, they'd chop up the wood, clear it. By the end of the day, our roads were open.
Right. So, mm,
They know that nobody's going to come help them. And they're all, where I live, it's kind of,
yeah.
self-sufficient types of people. Like, they're
Yeah.
they're ready for stuff like
But
that.
isn't it fascinating? So, because I have also, okay, a couple of things came up to mind while listening to you about that. So, basically, here in this region in Japan, also other parts of Asia, but in Hawaii, once again, people are they're the receivers of outcomes. So, and basically, the outcome of the natural disaster was the trees that had fallen, and some roads were blocked, and this and that. And still, even when they're the receivers of those outcomes, they know how to go about that. It's fascinating. And
Yes.
and it's like they're more active, because I don't know whether this is the case, but at least back home, so we don't get earthquakes that very often. Maybe we get relatively strong earthquake once in 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
And because, the construction there is not adjusted to withstand strong earthquakes, there is sometimes at the epicenter, there is, that's the, you know, it's not demolition, but they some buildings get damaged and so on.
Right. Right.
And most of the time, I have noticed that it's like people do not how to go about it back then. Of course, it could be
Right.
because of the very low frequencies of the event.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. But also there is this, expectation that probably, the local authorities, the local government or the central government should come and do something first. And while it is true even in Japan, for example, it's also true, but I have seen, especially after 2011, that's the March 11th
Yeah.
Great Japan earthquake. So people were very proactive in helping each other here. And I also remember how, they were on the way back home on that day, that was March 11th. So there were actually people, the owners or the people who did the maintenance of the vending machines on the street. They opened the machines and they gave the water away and all the drinks away for free at that point of time.
That's what happened in Ishinomaki.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
they had this little town, and the elderly population, they're
Hmm.
like in their 80s, a lot of them, because right, all the young people go to Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
That they had like a 15-20 minute window from the time the earthquake happened to
Hmm.
evacuate,
Yeah,
and they do drills all the time. They all have
they do.
backpacks, right? Old school, low tech,
Yeah.
master the basics,
Hmm.
and like 98% of the entire population evacuated, and the younger people were assigned to the elderly people to help them get up the hill in that
Right.
case. um, the supermarket owner in town opened the supermarket to everybody and just said, take anything you want.
Yeah.
And they rationed gas.
Hmm.
That's an incredible survival rate. If you're talking about a 15-20 minute window to get out of there before all their homes were wiped out.
Yeah. Yes,
So
indeed.
I wonder, like, if those were young Japanese people, would they have been prepared to do it if they were in that situation? It's hard, yeah, we'll never know. But
Mm.
I feel like the older generation has that ancient wisdom that, hey, the technology is as Miles will remind everybody, Miles Delphin, our buddy of
Hmm.
the Bike Scouts, first thing to go is technology.
Yeah.
So once you
Indeed.
don't have the technology, you have to be prepared to
Hmm.
react. And I had friends in Hawaii who were like ready, and I had friends who were not.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, once again, it to me, and this is a deviation of our topic, but it's still strange to, to see how many people believe that technology will save us.
yeah.
And then, of course, to a certain extent, probably there will be,
There's applications.
there are applications,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, it's yeah, something which comes before technology and which needs to be learned and practiced and so on. But also going back, to the community spirit, and you mentioned it earlier, I think that in such societies like the Hawaiian and the Japanese societies, it's okay. So many people say, yeah, everybody's so civil, so polite, and everybody likes each other. And I actually have seen that people do not necessarily like each other.
No,
No, but
they tolerate each other
exactly, they
politely.
tolerate. Yes,
Polite
they,
toleration.
yes, politely
That's okay.
tolerate
I
each other.
like that.
Yes, and then what is good actually is that they coexist peacefully. And it's really strange, and I know that many people will probably disagree with me, but I believe that in this sense of the word, the Japanese culture and probably the Hawaiian culture as well, and cultures that have the same origins of thought and philosophies and so on,
Very similar. Yeah.
very similar. They are actually much more democratic when it comes to acceptance of other people's opinions. Because here in Japan, from my experience, I can say that you will always be heard. And if
Yeah.
you say something, everybody else around you will try to adjust to what you're saying. While in the Western world,
At least try to look at it from your point of view. Like
yes,
holding two opposing thoughts in your head
yes, exactly.
is important, right?
Yeah, so here it is and A and B, but back home it is either A
Yeah,
or
or
B.
B, right.
So it's,
Binary choice. You got one or the
yes.
other. Yeah,
So it's like either my way or no way,
yeah, yeah,
right? So which is to me, even though we like the Westerners, we like to, to beat ourselves in the chest and say, look at how great, how good Democrats and how democratic we are. It's actually not that democratic.
yeah,
And I'm sorry for going into this direction, but I mean, with all these, like social media thing in recent years,
yeah,
how people cancel each other, how they don't have any tolerance for others
yeah.
who disagree with them. It's just, yeah, it's,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know. I think it's important to, just to listen to people. And if you disagree with them, okay, that's cool. You don't
that's,
have to be a
yeah,
jerk about it,
hmm,
disagree. Like you can just say, oh, okay, I disagree. But thank
yeah,
you for sharing your opinion.
exactly. Yeah,
Um, yeah, I
yeah,
know, but the algorithms got us in our bubbles, and it's really hard now. I'm pre-internet, old school, so I saw a world without it, so I can see those
hmm,
bubbles, those algorithm bubbles. Like I see it. That's
yeah,
that's what I get exposed to too. My bubble, and you know what, I think it's really good. I'm waiting for people to start unplugging more. I've been unplugging more lately, just just for mental health. It's good to get away. And you know what? It's really nice being in the analog world too. Like I went to Kyoto. I didn't bring my computer.
yeah,
I had a great time. 2 days, over
mhm,
2 days, right? Unplugged.
yes.
Um, so maybe that's the solution.
I
Old
guess it
school,
is.
old
Of
school. Go
course,
back.
solution. Yeah, yes.
Maybe I'll
Okay,
get an analog phone.
right. Okay, Tim, before we continue, so just
We
one
need
more.
a word from our wonderful sponsor.
Yes, our wonderful sponsor, Houze Inc. Houze offers bilingual services once again in English and in Japanese. So they do custom home design, construction and renovations, plus commercial building construction. And if you want to work, if you have in mind any such a project, please connect with Hana Urushizawa Howell on LinkedIn. You will find her contact details also in the description of the video on YouTube. And do not hesitate to talk with her, to talk with Housing, her colleagues there. They will be very happy to hear you out and to help you make the best of your idea. So, Tim,
I
yeah,
highly recommend them. They're good people, great product.
yeah,
Follow them on LinkedIn.
yes,
Great posts, great visuals,
mm,
dream homes.
dream homes,
Some of
yes,
those homes are just
beautiful,
gorgeous, just
yeah,
really nice. Yeah.
yes,
So right on.
yeah,
Um, so where else do we go here? I think the enduring nature of this mutual love affair, because not just the Hawaiians, there's a difference between the native Hawaiians and people who live in Hawaii.
yeah,
They're the originals, and but there's still a local culture,
hmm,
that has absorbed a lot of the Hawaiian sensibilities. A lot of, what is it now? Fourth generation Japanese, third and fourth generation Chinese, you know, uh, Filipinos.
right,
And a lot of them were brought to work in the sugarcane fields in the early 1900s, some even
hmm,
earlier, right? So there's this local culture, but the Hawaii people, anybody in Hawaii, they absolutely love Japan. They all want to come here. And now everybody in the world does, but they were
The,
way ahead of the curve.
mm.
They were way ahead of the curve. You
But
know,
why was that? What was so attractive
I think,
for
I
them?
believe subconsciously, the commonality of the cultures.
Hmm.
I think they admire that the Japanese take, like they're craftsmen, they're detail oriented, they're artistic,
Hmm.
they're professional. And a lot of Japanese tourists have been coming since,
Oh,
you know
yes.
better than me, right?
1956, I think.
In a sense. In fact, I learned this from you.
Mm.
The Hawaiians were the first people most Japanese came in contact with when they
Yeah.
were allowed to go travel to the
Yes.
world, get a passport. And this is after the war, right? And
Yes. Yeah.
so that was like the first point of contact with, for many people, of someone
Hmm.
who's not Japanese.
Right. Yeah.
And they clicked, I feel like.
Mm.
And they go over there, they're respectful, they don't mess stuff up. So I think that's another positive impression on the locals,
Hmm.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so an enduring love affair. I have friends, musicians, they make a living just playing Hawaii related events, hula or just
Hmm.
Hawaiian music, ukulele. They invite people in the audience to come up and play with them. That's their gig, and they have been able to sustain. And that's really difficult these days for a musician
Yeah.
to do the live house circuit in Japan and make
Hmm.
enough money to survive. But
Right.
that's their gig, you know. So
Yeah. And
um,
yeah, I also see a lot of Japanese women here, and obviously they're semi-professional or professional hula dancers, and they dance at many festivals, a lot of I mean, like even garden shows and such things. Inevitably, there is a hula dance group there, which is also great. But that hula dance group, they come with the musicians as well. It's not just like they play music on CD player or whatever. They have the live music with them. So maybe that's, or maybe some of the people you know already, your friends, are there as well.
I have so yes, all my like a lot of my friends are in that world, right?
Mm.
And but here's another thing my wife and I used to talk about, Kurumi and I.
Mm-hmm.
Why hula? And the answer is simple. Elderly women, it's not that hard, and they can, in a sense, it's like cosplay. They get to dress up, put
Mm-hmm.
makeup on, they get permission to get gussy themselves up and to
Okay.
dress in the proper attire for hula, to do it as a group.
Mm-hmm.
It's choreographed. There's a story, just
Yeah.
like the Japanese traditional. There's a story being told, and but it's not just like elderly. A lot of them are over 60, 70 years old. It's a reason to come together and
Mm-hmm.
socialize. So there's all these appealing, and kids do it too because they like the group. So the group orientation of hula, I think, also appeals, and it's not that hard. In
Right.
terms of on an elderly woman up in the
Mm-hmm.
years could still do it, and it's healthy, right?
It is healthy, yes. Any physical exercise that does not damage your muscles or bones, I believe, is good. And who does not do that, right?
Right.
So, all those movements, very, very nice, very slow and beautiful. Yeah, it's
And
beautiful.
it allows you to temporarily have a different identity, which gives
Mm-hmm.
you permission to put heavy makeup on and it's
Right.
cute. I think it's really cute and endearing because you
Mm-hmm.
can just see they're having so much fun as a group, right? And
Yeah.
and they practice really hard before the event, so they all do it right. And some of our best friends are hula dancers,
Mm.
and we have so much fun when we go out with them because a lot
Right.
of times they'll get up and start dancing. We've been at restaurants where they just get up and dance. We got free dessert at one restaurant because they all danced. So
Well, how about that? No, that's very sweet, really. And I am very happy to hear that there are restaurants that appreciate
Yeah.
such spontaneous.
A lot of
In-
them are bars, like my friends' bars, like Noda-san, They
yeah.
danced there several times.
Okay.
So,
Wonderful.
I know we were going to end a little early today before
Yes.
my voice goes out.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's a light cold, not that bad. I have all the antihistamines surging through my veins now, so I'm
Hmm.
half out of it. That's my excuse.
Yeah. So please be careful because
I'm okay.
yeah, at home we had actually an infection of mycoplasma, so which is kind of throat infection without much pain. But so please be careful. And if it
So was
continues,
it antibiotic?
yes, because
Okay.
it's a bacterial infection. So
Okay. Well, so
yeah.
far I'm feeling okay. I think I'll be good in a couple of days, but
Mhm.
I'll keep that in mind, and you know,
Yeah.
my better half will make sure I do the right thing.
Yes.
Go to the doctor.
Okay. That's
Men,
great.
we don't like to go to the doctor, but the wives make us.
Well,
Uh,
Kurumi-san knows best.
she
Yes.
knows best. I'm not going
Yeah.
to argue with her.
Yeah. Okay,
All right.
Tim.
Well, a commercial time then. Sign us
Yeah.
off, Maya, and thank you everybody for listening to us ramble today as our normally unplanned rambling
Yeah.
morning coffee chat around the table.
Yes. We hope that this was a pleasant conversation for you too. Of course, if you have any thoughts about this when you watch later, let us know in the comments. We'll be happy to respond. And well, Tim, thanks a lot. I know that
No,
it was kind of tough for you with your throat, but I appreciate this.
no problem.
And well, to everybody who watched us, have a great day.
Have a
Thank
good
you very
one.
much.
See
Yes.
you guys.
See you. Bye.
Thank you.